All right, welcome to the Krueg Show, everybody. Monday, July the 18th, 107 on the West Coast, back from vacation. Hope everybody had a great week. I know I did, hanging out at the beach down in San Luis Obispo last week, a little Avila Beach, a little time down on the Central Coast, enjoying myself. Now I've got a lot of peeling going on my shoulders, but that's a personal issue, so we'll save that for another day. But today is a significant day on the Krueg Show because today is rookie reporting day, and the 49ers rookies all reporting to Santa Clara for training camp. And joining us on the broadcast today, the Pig and a Pickle Krueg Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera, open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out in both locations. Now, not just in Marin, also in Emeryville. Check out Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Brings us the Krueg Show, and our guest today is Jordan Elliot, who does an incredible job for Niners Nation at breaking down everything Niner-related, and he is with us. Jordan, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, it's been a good summer. I'm a little jealous, though. That area of the Central Coast has always been one of my favorites. I used to go down to the sand dunes all the time down there in Pismo and go tear it up on the quads and dirt bikes and stuff. So hope you had a good time down there. It's always been one of my favorite places to go.
Oh, it was so fun. It was fun. We did a couple days at Avila Beach, one day at Pismo Beach. My two youngest boys did some zip lining, hit a couple restaurants, just kind of low key in the evenings, and just get away for a week at the beach, and barbecued a little bit on the patio of my kid. I rent an apartment for my son who goes to Cal Poly. So he's up here this summer working for a construction management firm. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't we just use your apartment? We'll just hang out down there. He's like, oh, great. Yeah, no sweat. So we actually stayed at my kid's apartment right there off campus. And it was just a great week. Perfect weather, 80s, 90s, beautiful beach days, cool nights, warm days. Nothing but the calm before the storm. The storm being the NFL training camp and the veterans report next week. The rookies reported today. Before we get rolling, Jerry R. has become a YouTube member of the Krueg Show. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for jumping aboard. We appreciate your support greatly. Eric Hernandez says, Larry and Jordan should be good. Yeah, Jordan is incredible. Bay Area baller. Baller, good to see you. He says, the Splash Cousin. That's right. In the house, in effect. I haven't live streamed, I think, for about 10 days. So this is, if I seem a little rusty, that's the number one reason why. But the rookies, the 49ers have a bunch of rookies, and they have a bunch of rookies because even though they didn't have a first or a second round pick, they still had a whole slew of draft picks, and then they always are active after the draft. And I would say they got about 10 to 15 rookies. And what do you think, Jordan? I mean, the number one rookie, according to the list, was Ji'ayir Brown, the safety out of Penn State, who was just a very productive interceptor of the football the last couple of years, as productive as almost any, the ball production that Brown had was as good as any safety in the draft. He's sitting number 2 on the depth chart at safety behind Tayshaun Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga. What do you think of Ji'ayir Brown? Why don't we start our rookie conversation right there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he is a guy where, I keep coming away, shocked they were able to get him where they did in the draft. And I think that was also consensus around the league. There are a lot of personnel people and, draft analysts, people who are spending the full 365-day cycle really focusing on these prospects, who felt that he was a guy who was much closer to a mid-second round type of grade rather than where he went there towards the middle, latter end of the third. So I think the 49ers just got very fortunate that they have a player who has that upside as somebody who can be a starter as soon as the season, who has a lot of physical traits that you really like. He's exceptionally fast. I wrote an article, it's been a couple months already. It's crazy how fast time's flying. After I spoke with his DB coach at Penn State, and they had the GPS tracking data for him, and he was clocking out at 22 miles an hour on game day. So he's a guy who can really fly, but he also plays with good instincts and has a good feel for the game. So when you start to get that combination, even though you have the growing pains that are going to come with a guy making that transition to the next level, I think he's somebody who they can find a way, even if Gibson is the guy they lean on initially, to work in some 3 safety looks, find ways to get him on the field and get him those reps and the experience he needs. I think he's a really good football player, and I think he's going to be a starter for the 49ers for a few years at least.
Yeah, the one thing we can say for sure, he will not be wearing his college number. He wore 16 at Penn State. Something tells me the Niners are going to push back if he asks for 16 in a 49er uniform. I'm just joking. Of course, the great Joe Montana wore 16, and there's no way they're ever giving 16 out again. It's retired, and nobody will ever wear it again. That all being said, I was very impressed by Ji'ayir Brown in the interview process during the minicamp. Very serious kid, very dialed in, very focused. And every practice that went by, I thought he looked a little bit better. Now, what do you think as far as they list him, at least the Our Lads depth chart, list him as the number 2 strong safety behind Afanga, with George Odom being the backup to Tayshaun Gibson. I kind of see Ji'ayir Brown as a guy who can play either spot. The Niners under Steve Wilks are likely to play a lot of cover 3 when they do go zone, which means you got the one deep safety covering a ton of grass, and you got the one safety in the box. And I got to think that Tafanga's in the box and Gibson's the deep middle. Is Ji'ayir Brown, Jordan, you think, more ideally suited to play in the box, and he's the backup to Hufanga as he's listed here? Or do you think he's got enough coverage ability where he could play that deep middle and cover a ton of grass out there like Gibson's being asked to do?
Yeah, I think he's definitely more the latter. He's somebody who has the range to go sideline to sideline. He looked really comfortable in space, as you mentioned. Great ball instincts. Just one of those guys where he seems to be around it at opportune times, and he's making plays on the football. So much of producing turnovers is luck, but it also has to do with, the more times you put yourself in those positions, the more often you're going to find luck being on your side. And I think he's just one of those guys where he was so often in those right places because of those instincts and because of that speed that he was able to take advantage of some of that turnover luck during his time at Penn State. I think Talanoa Hufanga is a guy who is going to continue to grow as well. Like, it's incredible to think he's coming off an all-pro season, and he'll just be in his 3rd year this year that we're heading into. So I think that he's a guy who, while he excels near the line of scrimmage and can play in the box, I think they're really interchangeable parts. I think all 3 of those safeties can do both of those things that you mentioned, whether they need to, spin down, come down near the line of scrimmage, take a tight end in the slot, send them on pressures. I think they're going to get really creative with some of the pressure looks they're going to do as well. But when they're in that cover 3, I definitely think that Brown is a guy who can handle the deep third of the field. And I think that, again, it comes back to having the ability to be versatile and change up your looks a bit, because when you have the ability to have maybe a look where you have Hufanga near the line of scrimmage, but he bails back into coverage, and you're showing cover 3, but it's really a cover 2. I think that the versatility in that safety room is one of the greatest strengths that they have collectively, because you're not going to have guys pigeonholed into one specific role. I think their ability to be variable with their looks is something that's going to give Steve Wilks a tremendous amount of flexibility.
Very interesting comment. We get this one from Justin Lomker, who makes a donation. He says, what are the rules regarding quarterbacks and attending rookie training camp? I say that because Trey Lance has only played 4 games, and in my mind and many others, he's considered to be a rookie. Do you know the specifications on veterans? I thought it was rookies report and quarterbacks. Is that, am I getting that wrong? Or will Trey and the rest of the quarterbacks only be reporting with the vets?
I'm honestly not sure off the top of my head. I thought that it was just rookies, but I could be wrong. I admittedly don't know off the top of my head.
If anybody knows that, throw that in the chat. Sorry that our first super chat here, Justin, we couldn't come to an answer for you. But I thought I saw that it was quarterbacks and rookies, but don't hold me to it. All right. The other big, happening in the secondary is that Steve Wilks takes over as the defensive coordinator. And, we got into this. Grant and I got into this yesterday because he was kind of pushing on they should have gone with Vic Fangio over Steve Wilks. And I understand that because Fangio's accomplished. But I also understand why the Niners chose to go with Wilks. I feel like the Niners felt like they had the personnel up front for a 4-3 front. They feel like they really like what Chris Kocherik is doing with their front. I think they were 6th in the league in quarterback hits last year. They've got a lot of one-gap penetrators now between Javon Hargrave, Kevin Givens, Kalia Davis, T.Y. McGill. These are one-gapper type defensive tackles. And I just think that they made the decision to go with Wilks because they thought, one, they wanted to keep their front intact. They didn't want to change out a bunch of their D linemen. They feel like their defensive front is effective. And I think they really felt like their improvement that was necessary on the defensive side would come from the addition of Hargrave up front, and also Wilks commanding and kind of directing the back seven, and most specifically the back four. He's a former DB. He's considered to be a guy who's excellent with DBs. What did you and then the Niners followed that up by adding Ji'ayir Brown, Darrell Luter Jr., Avery Young out of Rutgers as an undrafted guy, and Deshaun Jameson out of Texas as an undrafted guy. So they have 4 rookies in that secondary. What did you think of Wilks over going to the 3-4 and switching up and going with Fangio? And what do you think of those other 3 rookies back there?
The scheme discussion with Fangio is always interesting to me because he does run that 3-4 base, but so much of that scheme is rooted in the sub packages now with the way the NFL has gone that I don't think it would have been as much of a difficult transition as maybe some arguments I've seen out there have led it to be. I think you're going to be in, nickel dime packages so frequently that it really doesn't matter what your initial base defense is as much as it would have even 5 years ago, but definitely, like 10 years ago, whenever his last stint with the 49ers was. It's interesting because I think that as much as I really would have liked to see Vic Fangio in that position, because I just think that Vic Fangio, he's the godfather of the modern NFL defense. He's the guy that really changed the game on that side of the ball. And most of the innovation that you're seeing over the last couple of decades in the NFL is stemming from a lot of his philosophies and the things that he's implemented. So anytime you can get the guy who's behind all of this innovation, you'd have to chalk it up as a win. But I also can't fault Vic Fangio. I don't know what went into the negotiations and his decision-making, but South Beach is a pretty nice place to be too. Mike McDaniel is a hell of a coach as well. The Dolphins have something that I think really special is going on down there in Florida. So I can't fault him. If he had taken a job with a non-contending team in a worse off situation, I'd be a little bit more concerned with what's going on. But I think the 49ers were just in a spot where I'm sure there was interest with Fangio. I know he'd been I don't know if he was officially consulting, but there was reports he had been at some practices and he was at the facility during the year that he had off technically last year. And I think that I don't want to say that Steve Wilks was like plan B, but I think that they always knew hey, we're going to get one of these 2 guys. And either way, we're going to come out okay. And I think that Steve Wilks is a guy who has tremendous respect around the league. When I was at the Pro Bowl, I had asked around to a couple of his former players, people who'd worked with him, nothing but praise. And it wasn't just your cookie cutter, oh, he's a nice guy. There was in depth. You could tell there was a real sense of connection and just admiration for him. So I think that he's somebody where the shoes are going to be very big to fill. 49ers have been a top 5 defense for the last 4 seasons under 2 different coordinators. So he has, a very big reputation to live up to. But I think that he's somebody who can step in. Admittedly, I haven't had a chance to see the 2 undrafted defensive backs that you mentioned towards the end there. So I'm probably going to have to wait till camp to give an opinion on those guys. But I really like Luter Jr. I think he's somebody that profiles as a starter for them who can fill in if they need him to on the inside in the slot. But I think he projects as more of an outside corner in a press man scheme. So I'll be really interested to see if that's something they lean on a little bit more heavy going into this season and next year as well with Steve Wilks there. Because Luter Jr., he was one of the better shutdown press man corners in the entire country last year. And when he was at the Senior Bowl, he was shutting down very good receivers from Power 5 conferences. So say what you want about the schedule he was playing or the conference he was playing in, when he had to go up against guys that were from those Power 5 conferences, he looked really good doing it.
Yeah, Luter is a guy that I had a chance to talk to as well. He's got really, really long arms, as you said. I asked him, what are you most comfortable doing? Playing off, playing, press, playing zone of some kind. He said, yeah, I feel comfortable playing press man. He said even when they split it up and played zone on the opposite side, that he oftentimes played press man right up on the line of scrimmage. That's where he's most comfortable. And you know, a lot of people think, well, that's the hardest thing to do because there's a lot of guys that struggle in man-to-man coverage, but it's very difficult to play off coverage and absorb that that cushion. It's very difficult at times to play zone, you know, and it's a different skill set altogether. You know, in the zone, you're keeping your eye on the quarterback. In press man, you're really locking up your guy and trying to erase him and mirror him up and down the field. I think it is going to be interesting to see. Do the Niners play more press man? They've been a notorious zone coverage type team as far as pass coverage, and I think a lot of that's just because they don't match up. And now they feel like they match up better. And I think you may see Wilks implement a little bit more press man. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Luter Jr. can steal Lenore's job at left corner away from him. I think the competition on the corner is going to be very intense because you got Lenore, you got Luter, you got Mooney Ward. They brought in Isaiah Oliver. They brought in Miles Hartsfield from Carolina. Samuel Womack looked terrific in the workouts, you know, in the OTAs. As far as the two undrafted guys, I think you're going to really like Deshaun Jameson. You know, he's a smallish corner, but man, as the OTAs continued and we had the mini camp, I mean, this guy's just around the ball, and he's always around the ball. He breaks on the ball really well. He goes low against the run, so he doesn't, you know, even though he's 5'10", 185, his lack of size doesn't hurt him that much because he goes so low against the run. And then Avery Young's an interesting guy. He played safety at Rutgers, and he had a terrible 40 time. I think almost like a 4.8, 4.77 or something like that. But he also has experience playing the corner from early in his career, and I think that's going to bode well for him because you need as many guys who can play coverage as possible. So I think Avery Young could battle, you know, Taylor Hawkins, Quantrez Knight, you know, maybe for a fifth safety spot. I think they'll probably go with 4, but you never know. But you know, overall, I think they've added a lot of talent in the secondary between you know, Oliver, Luter, Brown, the improvement of Womack, Young, Jameson. I mean, they've got some new faces back there. What'd you think of the rookie linebackers? Because Scott McLuhan did an interview, I think, with Matt Barrows from The Athletic, and as he does every year, and he kind of talked guy by guy in the draft class. And one of the guys that he really loved a couple years ago was Talanoa Hufanga. This year, he really loved Jalen Graham. And then Graham, this was done right after the draft, and then Graham looked terrific in the OTAs, Jordan. I mean, he was just up and down the field. They list him at 6 feet 225, but he looks bigger than that. He definitely is smooth in coverage. He ran 4.64, but I think he plays quite a bit faster than that. D. Winters ran 4.49. The interesting thing about Winters, he was the 6th round pick out of TCU. He looked great in the national semi against Michigan and is a really instinctive blitzer. But he also had really, I think 28 or 30-inch vertical, and the lower body explosiveness wasn't there, which is why he fell to day 3, late on day 3. What do you think of Graham and Winters? Do you think either has an advantage? It's a very loaded linebacking core. It's going to be tough to make this team at linebacker.
Yeah, that's the most difficult part, right? And I think that's the hardest part when we talk about like expectations for rookies, is that these guys, if we're grading them on like a standard of what to expect from an NFL rookie, these guys can come in and look really good and pass that bar. But this team is so good everywhere that what ends up happening is a lot of these guys will either be cut or relegated to a practice squad role right away. And then a lot of times the takeaway is, oh, they're not very good or they missed on this pick, when it's in reality just the fact that it's very hard to find a role on this team early on because of how deep they are. And it's not even just the starters, it's the depth they have behind that. And you look at the Niners are the best linebacking room in the league. I don't think that's something that's really up for debate. I'd be happy to debate it with anybody who would have an argument for someone else, but they're absolutely loaded at that position. And then you start getting in to some of the guys they have in the depth there. When you have the Oren Burkses, the Marcelino McCrary Balls, the Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, like they just have so many guys that can step in and have proven time and time again when they need to step in and you slide into a prominent role there, that they're capable of doing so. So if you have a guy like D. Winters or Jalen Graham where they're not, making a huge splash in year one, or maybe they are on the practice squad for a good amount of the year, or they get waived and picked up by another team, I don't think that means that the 49ers missed on them. I just think it's unfortunately one of the few consequences of having a really good football team. The thing that stood out to me about D. Winters was that his measurables are almost identical to Dre Greenlaw's. Like if you go down and you put both of their measurables side by side, it's literally almost the exact same thing. So I do wonder if that was coincidence, or if the 49ers have identified certain physical archetypes where they're like, okay, this is really what we're targeting. And on top of it, this guy has a very high pedigree and played in big games and showed out in those high pressure moments. So one thing I really did like about D. Winters too was I spoke at length with his defensive coordinator. The article's on Niners Nations from a couple months ago, if anybody wants to check it out. And anybody who watched national championship game, that game was over with 5 minutes left in the second quarter, right? Like Georgia blew the doors off of TCU. And he talked about his composure and his relentlessness in a game that was, in that moment, you don't want to give up, but you pretty much know what the writing's on the wall. And he kind of spoke about the way that he responded to adversity and the way he was going out there and still giving that effort and still rallying teammates, even when they were, I think the final score was like 63-7 or something like that. It was one of the most lopsided college football games I've ever seen that was a playoff or, big time bowl game. And D. Winters was a guy that was still giving it all out there. So I think that kind of speaks to the football character that the 49ers target as well. I'm really interested to see Jalen Graham. I just have done a little bit more research on D. Winters because the more and more I looked into it, the more and more I'm like, man, this really feels like a guy who's going to end up sticking with this organization for the foreseeable future. So he's kind of the guy I'm leaning towards right now.
Yeah, Winters, I mean, when you saw him shoot those gaps, and then we talked to him, and somebody, I think it was Lombardi, was like, hey, they utilized you as a blitzer. And he's like, I wasn't blitzing there. And it tells you that this guy's really in his film study. And when he sees it, there's no hesitation. And he just shot gaps. Those weren't called blitzes. Those were him doing film study, reading and reacting, and just being decisive and getting into the backfield. And, man, that's exciting to see. I'm looking at that linebacking core. I think there'll be 6 backers on the team. Greenlaw, Warner, I think Marcelino was going to be the third starter. Then you've got the 2 rookies. That's 5 right there. That means you got 1 spot for a special teamer, and you got 3 really good special team backers in Oren Burks, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, and Curtis Robinson. I got to think that the Niners might be able to make a trade involving one of their linebackers, because they got 3 really dependable, solid special teams linebackers. And if they go with Winters and Graham and Marcelino and Greenlaw and Warner, odds are one of those guys is going to get moved. That to me is going to be interesting at the cut down. It's like, which linebacker will they act, unless there's an injury. There's always a chance for an injury, but I don't see them cutting Graham, and I don't see them cutting Winters. And I think Marcelino is going to have a huge year. So they did lose Azeez Al-Shaair, but, man, they're deep here. This is one of the deeper linebacking cores in football.
Absolutely. And, the loss of Al-Shaair is something, too, where it's like they seem to replace guys, and they replace production in a way where you have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. But I'll be honest, last couple of years, Azeez Al-Shaair has been one of my favorite football players on this team to watch week after week. And he was a guy, when you go back and you start pouring through the film a little bit, just he was exceptionally talented, but he played with just a level of physicality where you could see that wearing down offenses over the course of a game where, when you're getting hit like that over the course of 60 minutes, it really does take its toll. And I think things like that kind of get lost in translation sometimes. And the 49ers defense is so talented for so many reasons. But I think that having that kind of enforcer at the second level really does do a lot to damage the psyche of an opposing offense, especially when you're trying to get a running game going and you have Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair and Fred Warner shooting in gaps towards you, driving you into the turf the way that those guys do. I just think that he's somebody that, I'm not saying they can't replace him, because I think that they will be able to, given their track record. I just think that his loss is a little bit overlooked at this point in time because of how valuable he really was to this football team over the last couple of years. As for the special teams thing, I have to think that it's going to be Oren Burks, because Oren Burks was kind of brought in as that special teams ace who had all that great experience in Green Bay. There was years when Green Bay's special teams was really having a rough time. He was one of the few bright spots they had there. I honestly, I think he's going to be the third starter. We'll see how it goes during camp. I'm not sticking to that. I really do like McCrary Ball, but after going back and watching some games last season, he looked really good when he was out there with the starting defense. So I think that's going to be one of the more underrated competitions, because the top two spots are locked in. So I'm sure the attention will be elsewhere. Obviously, the quarterback battle and funny enough, the kicker battle will probably be the top two people are paying attention to. But that third, fourth, fifth linebacker spot's really going to be something to watch, because they have too many talented players. They don't have enough spots. And it might be a situation like a couple of years ago when they traded Jonas Griffith to the Broncos, got back a 6th and a 7th. I think they sent Griffith in a 7th, and then that got back a 6th and a 7th in return. And with the way this team drafts on day 3, like if your alternative is cutting a guy, you got to make a move like that and see where you end up when you make that pick in the draft in the years to come. Yeah,
no, it's one of the ways they've kept their numbers up and their depth up. How about the D-line rookies? Robert Beal Jr. Comes out of Georgia, 5th-round pick, and then Spencer Wagee from North Dakota State was an undrafted free agent. I love what I've seen out of Spencer. I think he's got enough speed to play defensive end. Unfortunately, they may need him at defensive end because they're a little thin there. They added R. Hargrave, but they lost Ebukam Willis and Amenihue. What's your? I know you haven't seen Wagee yet, but give me your thoughts on Beal. I mean, Beal didn't play a lot at Georgia, but man, he's got 83-inch wingspan, 4.4 speed. He was a big-time athlete, and he just kind of got caught up in a numbers game in one of the deepest, maybe the deepest roster in all of college football, the Georgia Bulldogs. What do you think of Robert Beal Jr.? He did not stand out at me or to me at the mini camps, but that doesn't mean anything necessarily. What do you think of Beal, and what did you think of him in the draft?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the lack of production that might be there being more rooted in they just had way too many talented players rather than it being something based on the merit of his play or his production or how he's performing in practice. The last couple of years, Georgia, those Georgia teams are up there with the best college football teams we've seen over the last quarter century. You could put them up against pretty much any team over that time and have, not saying that they'd beat them, but they'd be competitive against pretty much, maybe that Miami Hurricanes team that had all those NFL starters is probably the only exception to that. But Georgia's been so good over the last couple of years that I don't really fault any player that wasn't dominating playing time. And especially in college, like the thing that gets so lost in translation in college too is that what's good for a program at a collegiate level doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL. Like there are plenty of college quarterbacks who are great for that specific system for winning games in college who aren't going to have NFL careers, while you might have a guy who struggles a bit in college, but then when you put them in an NFL system, they have more success. So I think when I look at Beal, he's a guy where I just feel like they just kind of took a chance on upside. Like he has really good physical traits. You mentioned the wingspan. I think he's a guy who has tools to develop. I don't think that they're going to be counting on him to be making a major impact in year one. I don't want to say yet because I haven't had a chance to really see him in pads up close yet. If that, it's going to be a red shirt year, quote unquote. But I don't think that would be the worst outcome if that's what happens. And I think it really just came down to it being a situation where they're like, hey, we have Chris Kocurek. We have this secret laboratory in Santa Clara where we churn out this elite defensive line every year and we develop guys into just this menacing pass rush year after year. Let's take some high upside guys with traits, let them work with this excellent coaching staff we have and see what we can make of it. And realistically, if you miss, like, hey, it's a day 3 pick. Like you're going to miss on 60 to 80% of your draft picks in any round. But when you're taking chances on guys like that in the 5th round, I just think it's good business. I think it's good practice to bet on traits and bet on your own coaching staff and a guy like Chris Kocurek maximizing those talents. And hey, maybe in year 2, year 3, year 4, that rookie deal, you're getting some kind of production out of him. But if you don't, it's really not a huge loss at the end of the day.
We're at a point now where the top teams in college football, the Georgias, the Bamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio States, they recruit on such an incredible high level that you need to really take inventory of all of their 4- and 5-star guys, even if they didn't see the field when you get into the middle rounds, especially on day 3. That's what the Niners did here with Beal. I think you're right. I think it was wise. And now we're going to find out, can he, he wasn't great at dropping and playing coverage, but man, if you just wanted him to set the edge against the run, burn the edge in the pass rush, Kirby Smart told John Lynch that he thought he could do it. John invested the 5th round pick in Beal, and we're going to find out. Let's flip the card real quick and do the offense. Coletto comes over from Oregon State. I think that's interesting. I think he either makes the team or maybe they might be able to trade him at the end of camp because there's a lot of teams that really liked him, and the Niners won a bid to get him as an undrafted free agent. And I think they would love to put him on the practice squad and have him be Juszczyk in 2024. But they may wind up moving him if another team comes calling. Ronald Awatt, I've had on the show. I really like Ron out of UTEP. Kalen Laburn started at Florida State, went to Marshall. I realize you haven't seen those guys yet, but what did you think of the 2 tight ends? Because to me, the year ended with everybody going, Tyler Kroft can't block, Tyler Kroft this, Tyler Kroft that. And the Niners did invest a 3rd in Cameron Latou and a 7th in Braden Willis. They also had the gold helmet designation on Willis. And the talk was they may have picked him as high as the 3rd round if they hadn't gone with Latou instead. What do you think of those 2 rookie tight ends? Which of the 2 do you think makes the bigger impact?
It's funny because it's people always get so caught up in draft capital, right? That it's like horrible if your 7th round pick ends up being better than your 3rd round pick right away, or they make a bigger impact. But I really don't see it that way. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where they're taken as long as they make an impact. And I really think that Braden Willis has a quicker path to making an impact, especially because of the versatility he brings. He can play H-back, he can play inline, he can kick out to the slot. They asked him to do a ton of things at Oklahoma, and he excelled pretty much everywhere. I thought he was a more than willing and capable blocker as well. And it checks out that they would have that gold helmet designation on him, because when you talk to the coaching staff there at Oklahoma, he was one of those guys where he was out there putting in a tremendous amount of work, where they had to literally yank him off the practice field because he was exerting so much energy in practice week after week. They're like, dude, you got to save it for Saturdays. And that just kind of screams towards the culture that the 49ers are building there. I do like Latou. I think he's a guy where maybe there's a little bit more development and the upside may be higher in the long run. But tight end is such a hard position. Like, to me, the 2 hardest positions to transition to at the NFL are corner and tight end. And I think that a lot of times it takes guys till year 2, year 3 to really hit their stride at that position, save for some, rare exceptions to the rule. I think Willis right now has a clearer path to earlier work, but I think that Latou has very high upside. And I know he's another guy that McLuhan would seem to really like as well and had very, very good things to say about. I trust his eyes and his judgment as much as anybody else's that I've encountered in the football world. So that definitely should bring some optimism for that pick, in my opinion. But, it was time to make a change in the depth behind George Kittle. I think that they had capable players there. I think Ross Dwelly's been really good for them and been very dependable. I thought Kroft kind of got a bad rep just because of that one play in that one game where he missed a block. And unfortunately, it kind of, that people choose that as the sticking point that derailed the season. But they haven't been young and they haven't really had athletes behind Kittle. And I think that's where there's a welcome change, where you're going to have a little bit more athletic upside in those depth roles. You can roll out that 22 personnel and have just a little bit more the 12 personnel, my apologies, and have a little bit more upside physically with the guys in the depth there. Sometimes when you're doing prep, there'll be a stat or a number that jumps out and makes you go, what? That's incredible. The stat that I was looking at as I'm doing my deep dive on the Niners, getting ready for camp, guess how many receptions 49er tight ends not named George Kittle had all of last year? I'm going to say under 15.
7.
7. Wow. Yeah. 7
receptions for Niner tight ends not named George Kittle last year. That is ridiculously low. I mean, to me, if I'm Dwelly or Werner, I may just be renting my apartment this year, and I may want it on a month-to-month, because I think there's a very good chance that Latou and Willis wind up taking the jobs away from Warner and Dwelly in this camp. And I know they like Warner as a blocker. I know they like Dwelly as a receiver, but I think they're looking for upgrades, and I think they drafted a couple guys. And I talked to the tight end coach Fleury, and he said, hey, don't forget Latu has played very little tight end, so his upside growth is significant. Every time we look at him, he's better. So, and he flashed a little bit in the OTAs. Couple last ones before we let you go. What was your thinking on Ronnie Bell? It's like for 2 years in a row now, Jordan, I've gone to a pick that when it was made, I couldn't stand it. And then later I was like, great pick. 2 years ago, it was Brock Purdy. And when I heard that name, I was like, really? They're going to go for this kind of weak-armed college, backup, career backup. And they're going to invest a draft choice in him. And then, my buddy who had been in Ames and scouted him said, hey, look, if this guy were an inch taller, if this guy had a little bit more arm strength, I would love this guy as like a second or third round pick. And I said, okay. And then he said, here, I'm going to send you some films. I want you to watch this guy, watch him intently. So I watched him. I thought, yeah, he looked pretty good. Then I he went to Jacksonville, got, more velocity on the ball. And the rest is history. And Brock was tremendous. I mean, as good as any rookie quarterback I can remember. This year, I really didn't like Ronnie Bell. And I thought to myself, why? Why Ronnie Bell? And then the more I watched him in the minicamp, the more I thought, this guy's going to make the team. And then when I read his backstory and how his father is currently a collegiate wide receiver coach for like Central Illinois or Western Illinois, or I forget which school it is. And it's like, yeah, you know what? You can see that. You can see how fundamentally sound he is and everything that he does. And I'm become a huge Ronnie Bell fan. I think he's going to give Juwan Jennings, Tay Martin, and anybody else who's in the running for that last wide receiver spot a run for their money this summer. Give me your Ronnie Bell thoughts. Did you like the pick initially?
I really liked the pick initially. I had him in a couple mocks that I did before the draft because I thought once you get to, I think they had 4 picks in the 7th round this year.
Right.
So once you get to that point, it's kind of, you can't really be too upset at, if there's a lower ceiling or a lower floor or their physical traits aren't there. A lot of times these guys are projected to go in that round for a reason. But the more and more I watched Ronnie Bell, the more I just felt like this guy doesn't really do any one particular thing that stands out to me. He just does a lot of little things really well that when you look at the complete picture, to me, that equated to a guy that would have a future in the NFL and could, be a mainstay in the league just based on the fact that he had such a high floor and he had the ability to just win and do the little things. I think he's going to project as more of a slot receiver personally. I think that he's somebody that could give the 49ers kind of something that they haven't had the last few years. I think that Juwan Jennings has been really good as that kind of, big slot, but he's also he's a big guy. He's not somebody that really has the, that change of direction and, shiftiness that somebody who has a smaller stature is naturally going to have a little bit more of an advantage in creating. So when I look at Ronnie Bell, he's a guy who I think has a future on the team just based on the fact that he fits the profile of an NFL guy that, maybe isn't a household name and isn't somebody that you're talking about week after week, but he shows up, he does his job, and he's going to do all the little things that earn him a roster spot. So I'm with you. I think he will make the final 53 this year. Again, a lot of this stuff, it's really hard to say. He could go into camp and he could look terrible, and then that prediction looks awful a month from now. But without, seeing that up close yet, I think he's a guy who absolutely projects as somebody who could be on the 53-man roster as soon as the season.
2 last ones. One from Callie Young here. He says, does Jordan think Tay Martin has a chance to make the 53? Could come down between Ronnie Bell and Tay Martin for that last wide receiver spot. I don't know if you saw the film of Trey working out at TCU, but he had Tay Martin running the routes for him. And Tay Martin is a really, really good receiver who's 6'3", great ball skills. He was weak in the upper body. He didn't lift. He didn't do the bench, when he came out in the draft 2 years ago. They redshirted him, put him on the practice squad all year. I talked to him at the beginning of the year, talked to him middle, talked to him late. At the end of the year, he's like, yeah, I'm really, devoted to my offseason lifting. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to show up in July in great shape. And then in the OTAs, he's clearly put on some muscle in the upper body. And I thought he looked awesome catching those passes from Trey in Dallas. Give me your thoughts on Tay Martin. I think Tay Martin is a tremendous receiver. I'd be surprised. I can't say I'd be surprised if he doesn't make the team because it's such a loaded wide receiver core, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't carve himself out an NFL career, whether it be here or somewhere else.
Yeah, he earned that big play Tay nickname for a reason, right? Like he was somebody who was very fun to watch during the games I was able to see at Oklahoma State. And, he had the year to kind of acclimate, get used to the NFL, just everything that comes with it. So, it's hard because I think he has the talent to be on an NFL roster this season. Like he looks like a guy, like there's plenty of teams that don't have a receiver as good as Tay Martin that's going to end up making a 53-man roster. But it comes back to this just kind of like unfortunate consequence of being so talented at so many positions that if he ultimately doesn't find a role here, is that really an indictment on him, or is it just, man, this 49ers receiving group is really good? Because I think what happens is people get so caught up in like how top heavy Debo and Ayuk make the receiver room because they're one of the best duos in the league. They're one of maybe 5 or 6 duos in the league that you just unequivocally put at the top when you think of 1-2 punches at the position. But they have a really good receiver room, and I just think that it would be nice to see somebody like Tay Martin make the roster because I think he gives them that big-bodied, red zone threat that they, for whatever reason, haven't really had at the position for the last few years. And I think that it would be a welcome addition to a room that, again, is very talented, but it just would give them something a little bit different. So he's somebody I'm definitely excited to see in camp. I know Brad Graham loves him. Brad and I talk all the time about these guys coming out of the draft, going into it. And he's been right there with you, Larry, as a big Tay Martin guy all along. So, trusting the eyes of both of you guys, I definitely have tried to keep an eye on him as much as possible. And I think that he's somebody to watch closely in camp this year because if he doesn't get a chance with the 49ers, I don't think he'll make it through waivers. I think somebody else will eventually pick him up and take a chance on him.
Yeah, the ball skills are too good. And if you don't believe me, go watch the Oak State bowl game against Notre Dame, his final collegiate game. I think he was the most unstoppable player on the field. He had like 3 catches in the second half for like 109 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Oak State pulled the upset against Notre Dame. Last one, Jake Moody. Is this were the Niners done with Robbie Gould? What do you make of Robbie kind of – I don't know where Robbie's head's at. At the end of the year, Robbie's like, I want to be elsewhere. I'm going to kick elsewhere. A lot of people speculated he wanted to go back to Chicago. Now he's still a free agent, and he's like, hey, I wanted to come back to the Niners, but the Niners didn't want me. Is it as simple as once the Niners went for Hargrave, they had to gain that money somewhere, and they'd rather go for the $800,000 rookie kicker instead of the $5 million veteran kicker? Or do you think Jake Moody is just that awesome of a prospect that the Niners fell in love with Moody? I think only like 4 kickers have been drafted as high as Moody in the history of the league. But, man, he kicked a 63-yarder, and he's obviously got a monster leg. What did you think of the transition from Robbie to Moody?
I think it's an unfortunate situation for Jake Moody to step into because I think that the expectations are so high. And the thing I always come back to is Robbie Gould never missed a kick in the postseason. Like that.
Ever.
It's incredible. Not even one. And the conditions he was kicking in, too, you have to think, he was in Chicago where it's very difficult to kick in the wintertime. He made kicks for them. Then you come to the 49ers. I always go back to that kick that he made in Green Bay in that divisional round game a couple years ago where the second the ball left his foot, he turned around and started strutting towards the sideline. It was like that putt that Steph Curry made in Tahoe this weekend.
Right.
Before it's going through the uprights, he knows it's going in. And the amount of swagger to do that as a kicker, to me, it oozes a confidence that is very rare at that position. And, I did a pretty extended interview with Jay Feely, who was a 14-year veteran, Pro Bowl kicker himself. He was a Michigan guy. So he watched Moody really closely, and he spoke about how, confidence is everything at that position. And some of these guys who have all the leg talent in the world miss one kick, and one kick derails an entire career. And, he'd mentioned like Blair Walsh in that game against against Seattle in Minnesota in the playoffs, where Blair Walsh was this incredible kicker, had this prolific rookie season, misses a chip shot field goal, and his career is never really the same. So he spoke about the ability to respond to that adversity, and that's really what separates guys at that position. And he had mentioned how early on in his career at Michigan, like Jake Moody had gone through some adversity and he responded really well to it. So on top of the physical talent, he has a lot of the mental things that somebody who played the position at a high level for a long time said is kind of a prerequisite if you're going to last in the league. So I'm optimistic on Moody, but I just think that like it's really difficult to move on from a guy like Robbie Gould. I understand he's 40. I understand he commands a lot of money, but to have that just sense of confidence in a game that's win or go home, where you're in the Super Bowl window, you can't afford to leave any points off the board, and you know that every time you send Robbie Gould out there in the playoffs, that ball's going through the uprights. I just think that that's something that you pay for that. You pay the premium for that until he decides, hey, I don't want to play football any longer. So it's not a knock on Jake Moody, and it's not necessarily a knock on the process, but I just think that it's a mistake to not do everything in your power to keep somebody like Robbie Gould happy financially. Like, I don't think he was asking for something that was so outrageous where it's like, we have to pivot to the cheaper option. I'd love to know the thinking behind it, but man, if the 49ers are in a spot where they're in a big game during the season, or, you'd hate to say it, during the playoffs, and Jake Moody misses a big kick, the first thing I'm going to think of is Robbie Gould wouldn't have missed that. Robbie Gould splits the upright on that. So I just think it's a situation where when you're in that win now window, it's really hard to move off of somebody who is as dependable as Robbie Gould was.
I agree wholeheartedly. And yet Moody definitely has a lot of potential. And if he's as money as his nickname, right? His nickname's Money. Maybe the Niners have the next great kicker. I guess that's clearly the hope. I don't want to embarrass you, but I'll say this: there was a Rob Guerrera did or Stats Guerrera did a whole breakdown. He had the Final Four pool of 49er content creators. And as somebody who feels like, I'm among these content creators now, and I get a chance to digest it all, read it all, immerse myself in all of it. You, my friend, would have been in that Final Four for sure. The work that Jordan Elliot does, folks, on Niners Nation is as good a Niner content as there is. And I would encourage all of you guys to check out everything that he writes throughout the year. Jordan, we appreciate your time. Before you leave, give people an idea. If they go to Niners Nation today, tomorrow, this week, next week, leading into training camp, what are you working on? What are you producing?
Yeah, as we're thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I love what I do. I love football, so it is something that I pour a lot of time into. But the reward is getting to have conversations like this, getting to have dialogue with so many passionate 49ers fans. I have a lot of friends who cover teams around the league that I talk to pretty frequently, and you'd be hard pressed to find a fan base as passionate as 49ers fans. So I'm very grateful for the fans who are so opinionated and are able to generate so many discussions, and the ability to just, talk about the sport we all love. We all wouldn't be here if we didn't, right? So I'm very grateful for that. And then as for Niners Nation right now, I'm kind of, we've had a dead period the last month or so. And I've been trying to kind of put a bow on 2022 and then just pivot towards 2023 when camp starts. So I've gone back and I've, kind of ran through all the all-22 I had from last year, watched some games. I did a series where I highlighted some performances from last year that stood out to me. And then right now what I'm working on is just kind of like a best of the best from last year from all the film clips that I've pulled. It's really funny. One of my biggest feats from last year, not that anybody cares, but I taught myself how to cut up some of these things on iMovie in a way that's, presentable and could be absorbed by, fans. And I'm going through my iMovie. I have like 500 film cut-ups from last season alone. So I've been going through those, and I've been highlighting some of my favorite ones. So like I did an article on defensive line stunts, some of the defensive stunts and the kind of exotic fronts that D'Amico Ryans used last year. I had one yesterday that was about the defensive tackles and their ability to stop the run, and how that set up the pass rush to be so good, and how the run defense was really underrated. And I think the next one I'm working on is on the linebacker play. So it's really just kind of, it's a few highlight plays and pointing out some things that really stood out to me, and just kind of trying to enjoy some of the good things that happened last year. Because I feel like last year just ended on such a sour note that a lot of the good things that happened got overlooked. So it's kind of just hopefully one last kind of chance to reminisce on everything and then put everything forward into 2023. So If you want to relive some of the good things from last year, that'll probably be what I'm doing for the most of the next, 7 to 8 days until camp starts. And then everything will be focused on training camp and whatnot.
And by the way, you're tremendously versatile. So I'll throw you this one on the way out the door. Should the Giants trade for Shohei Ohtani before the deadline, or should they hoard their prospects, wait till free agency, and then just cut them a big fat check?
Okay, so I don't want to sound like I'm hedging because that's not my intention. Like, I think that the smart thing to do would be to wait, because in my eyes, if you hold on to those prospects, especially with, I was literally just looking at this last night. It's funny you mentioned that. Luciano and Harrison are both top 15 prospects, and Harrison's the best pitching prospect in baseball, in my opinion. Maybe the rankings don't reflect that, but I think that he's a guy who's ascending. He's definitely the best left-handed prospect. That's kind of the consensus. He's going to be a frontline ace for the next 10 years, in my eyes. I think that you present a much better case to Shohei Ohtani in free agency if you hold on to all these young players who are right around the corner. Like, it's not like they have guys who are 5 years away. These are guys who could be impact bats and impact arms in the next year or two. And even if you don't necessarily hold on to them, that's ammunition to go get another major league ready guy to pair with Shohei Ohtani. So to me, I've never understood the line of thinking of like, oh, well, we'll have him in the building, we can wine and dine him. Like, I don't think that necessarily gives you any kind of inherent advantage. And any kind of advantage it would give you, to me, would be erased by the fact that you made yourself a less appealing option by gutting your farm system to get him there. But I also think if that's what it takes to land Shohei Ohtani, I'm not going to sit here and be like, this was a horrible decision. Like, he's a once in a generation, maybe a once in a lifetime kind of player. So I can understand it. But if I'm running the team, I think I make a much better sales pitch for the next 10 years if that sales pitch includes Marco Luciano and Kyle Harrison. And I'd be much more willing to write a bigger check and run the risk of having it be this open courting in free agency rather than just banking on the fact that, oh, he'll be in San Francisco for 2 months. That means we get to keep him long-term. I've never really aligned with that kind of thinking. But hey, if that's what it takes, there's plenty of people who know more than me. You go get a guy like Shohei Ohtani. I just think that keeping the farm system intact makes a much better case to him to invest the best decade of his life in baseball in San Francisco.
Some of the people in the chat, Some Mera says, God, I hate baseball talk. And Charlie Higgs jumps in with, how did we transition into baseball? I didn't even notice. Yeah, there you go. Well, that's how versatile Jordan is. Hey, Jordan, we love your content, brother. Keep it rolling. A huge fan. Anything we can do for you, just shout it out. Hopefully we'll see you at camp this summer. And hopefully we'll get a chance to visit with you periodically throughout the year. We love your breakdown and think the world of you. So thanks again, man. Have a great rest of your Monday.
You too, Larry. Good to see you.
There you go. The great Jordan Elliot. He is phenomenal. Really, really good. All right, here, I'm going to throw one question out to you guys. Who is the rookie that you are most excited to see? I also have a bunch of starred chats I want to get to and a couple more of your comments before we bail for the door. But who is the rookie you're most excited to see? Put it in the comments here, and we'll go through them here momentarily and see what rookie the Niner fans are most excited to see. But first, of course, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations, Corte Madera and Emeryville. They're open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. now in both locations, both in Emeryville and Corte Madera. The brisket is amazing. The brisket chili is second to none. The potato chips cooked in beef fat, which you can only get in Corte Madera, absolutely mouth-watering. Here's what they look like in Marin. We'll play a couple spots. We'll come back and hit the chat next on the Krueg Show.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 7 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
All right, welcome back to the Krueg Show. When you see that Pasquale wink, you know that we are brought to you by the New York Style Italian Sausage Company. And, of course, we're also brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And bottom of the screen, thanks to our sponsor, Marin Auto Glass. Check them out at marinautoglass.com. Saeed, the owner of Marin Auto Glass, is phenomenal. You crack a windshield, they come out to wherever you're at, pop out the old one, glaze in the new one, sweep away the glass, and you're good to go. 415-883-3030, marinautoglass.com. On the web, Marin Auto Glass, for all of your glass and windshield needs. All right, let's go to the starred chats. One super here that we didn't get to, the Stride Abides, says 49er joke. Okay, question. How does a 49er quarterback guarantee he'll be the first-string quarterback in the postseason? A, by being the fourth-string quarterback in the preseason. There you go. Jordan and Krueg. Yeah, I hear you. How about this? I saw a stat the other day. The last 6 years outside of the 2019 season, the Niners have used for the last 6 seasons 3 quarterbacks each year. So I want to see Trey. I want to see Brock. I want to see Sam. I want to see Brandon. Guess what? You're all going to be happy. You're going to see them all. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but I think there's a very good chance you're going to see all of them. Some Mahera, and if I butchered that, I apologize, Some. He says, Larry, why aren't you doing this from training camp? Well, today was rookie report day, but there's no media availability on rookie report day. But yes, soon enough, we'll be doing all of this from training camp. I will be there each and every day of training camp. Keep it locked on the Krueg Show for all the best content throughout the preseason and regular season. We'll be doing breakdowns of every practice. We'll be doing interviews with players, bringing you the sights and sounds of training camp, really from the beginning to the end. So as soon as they allow us down there, we will be there, and we will be filming, we will be talking, we will be evaluating, and hopefully you guys will be enjoying our coverage of 49er football. Riz Master General, when is Larry going with the wireless headphones? Let's go wireless. They're coming. They're coming. They've been ordered. They are coming. Oscar Solis, what is the possibility for someone like Ronald Awatt to make the running back room? I love Ronald Awatt's ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got great hands, plucks the ball naturally. I'm eager to see what he looks like with the pads on. I think both Awatt and Layburn are going to be heard from this summer. The Niners are deep at running back. They're very deep at running back, very deep at linebacker, very deep at wide receiver. Those are the spots that they're exceptionally deep at. Rizmaster, Robert Saleh on Hard Knocks. Let's go. That's right. The Jets. Get to see the Jets on Hard Knocks this year. Another one from Riz. He says, better Niners GM, Trent Baalke or Scott McCloughan? I'm going to go with Scott McCloughan. Scott McCloughan. Though I can't do a McCloughan imitation, and I can do a Trent Baalke. You know what, guys? I really liked our linebackers when we had Gerald Hodges, and I get unfairly criticized, Lowry, for drafting too many guys with ACL issues, but I always look for value. All right, a data 84. I got to work on my Trent. Doesn't feel the same today. A data 84 says, any news on Nick Zakelj? Is he going to get reps at right tackle? That's a great question because I think the Niners are thin at right tackle. They've got Colton McKivitz. They've got Jalen Moore. You have Matt Pryor, Leroy Watson. You heard John Lynch say Zakelj was one of the heroes of the offseason workouts. I'll just say this. Zakelj is a great prospect. He really is. He's 6'6". He's about 315 pounds. He's nasty. He's smart. He's tough. He's dedicated. He's athletic. I think you may see him at right tackle. I would not be surprised at all. It's time for Nick Zakelj to hit the field. And last year he redshirted, and that was great. Him and Alfredo Gutierrez and Brock shared an apartment. But Zakelj is everything you're looking for. Smart, tough, physical, versatile, a lot to like there. So somehow, some way, Zakelj's going to find his way to the field. He's got enough height and arm length to be a tackle, but I'm not sure if they view him as such. They've kind of put him in at right guard. Is it possible that Zakelj replaces Brunskill? And maybe this year, even though Burford's thought to be the full-time starter, maybe Burford, who shared with Brunskill, will share with Zakelj. All I got to say is Zakelj's real. That the one thing I like about the Niner O-line, it's deeper than they've ever had it in recent years. Trent, Banks, Brendel was a Pro Bowl alternate, Burford, McKivitz. I'm not fearful of McKivitz. I think McKivitz is going to be an upgrade as a pass protector from McGlinchey. But what I'm really excited about is the depth. Matt Pryor comes over, Jason Poe's in year 2, Zakelj's in year 2, Jalen Moore's in year 3. They signed John Feliciano. They brought in Joey Fisher as an undrafted guy. They got a kid named Ilm Manning out of Hawaii who played left tackle, but he's probably more of an interior guy because he's got more of an interior body shape. But Ilm Manning is a big-time player. I really like him a lot. So, I think they're deep. I think they're really deep. I think the competition for the backup spots on that Niner offensive line this year could be fierce. Absolutely fierce. Couple others here. We got this one from Kevin Duff. Kalen Laburn is worth watching. He says it's a tough school getting into the running back team, but he could surprise a few people. I'll say this about Laburn. He was a 5-star coming out of high school, went to Florida State, got his degree from Florida State, then transferred to Marshall. His dad was in the Naval Academy. This guy's really, really powerful in the lower body. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He catches it naturally. He's got enough strength to run through arm tackles. He's got really good balance, and he's thick. You're talking about a guy who carries a lot of his weight from the belt down. He's really thick in the legs. He's not an easy guy to tackle, and he's got that 5-star pedigree. So, the Niners have done an unbelievable job under Kyle Shanahan at finding undrafted and day 3 running backs that they can use. Look at it. Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert. They can go for guys, and they can find guys. They can unearth gems late in the draft. Jordan Mason. These guys can all play. Jordan Mason looked great in the mini camp. Incredible. Can't wait to see what he looks like. He might be a star. He actually might be a star player as an undrafted free agent. Jordan Mason's real. You guys all saw Elijah Mitchell. He can run between the tackles. TDP is going to be better this year than last year. I think we've already seen that on the field in the minicamp. Ronald Awak can catch it, and it's got a nice little bounce to the outside, sub 4.5 speed. Laburn has got power and tackle breaking ability, and he's very experienced. He had over 300 carries last year. You remember when Marshall upset Notre Dame in South Bend? That was all Kalen Laburn. I think it was like week 2 of the college football season last year. So Laburn's real. And then don't sleep on Coletto either as a fullback. I can't imagine Coletto will make the team because Juszczyk's there, but I bet you the Niners could trade Coletto at the end of camp and get something decent in return. Couple other comments here. Steven Saunders says, get Cody Bellinger. We were talking about a little baseball before. He says, go get Cody Bellinger. That's not a bad call. It's not a bad call at all. I'd rather go get Bellinger and bring him in. He's hitting 300. Giants and Cubs have made some deals. Somi Mayra says, love you, Larry. Thank you. Thank you. Spaghetti says, I heard wireless is not good for you. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I'll have to hold off, but I think they've already been ordered. JC Montana says, Ronald Awatt is a stud out of UTEP who's an underdog, but I see him doing big things. I did an hour with Ronald Awatt on this channel about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now. So go look for that on the Krueg Show. By the way, I'm wearing the Krueg Show merchandise today. We got a brand new store on the channel. All you got to do is go to the Krueg Show channel page on YouTube, and click over to the icon that says store, and you can buy all kinds of merchandise. Anybody who buys anything, I will make a personalized video personally thanking you for supporting my channel. So if you want to support the channel, help our sponsors, that's always the best way. But if you want to buy some merch, tell me your name, give me some information about you, and I will gladly do a personalized video thanking you for investing in Krueg Show merch. And I just think it's the right thing to do. Also, it's kind of cool to kind of reach out to the people that are supporting the channel and are passionate about it. Jim Thorokill says, Larry, thoughts on the umpires last night? What game are you referring to? I could not stand the fact the Giants game ended in the 8th inning. And it picks up today in about half hour. We'll go watch that before their game 2 in Cincinnati. But Giants, I believe, have 2nd and 3rd with 1 out in a 2-2 ball game when this play was suspended. I'm not sure what else you're referring to. Krug, 3rd string All-Pro says, Krueger! Exclamation points. There you go. Spaghetti says Feliciano. Feliciano, in my mind, is the 2nd best pickup of the offseason behind Javon Hargrave. Feliciano's a beast, and he's done nothing but start his whole career. And I'll say this, if Jake Brendel's not ready to roll, Feliciano's going to start over him. So that just makes the interior of the Niner line so good. Some drops another one. Fordham kid talking about Nick Zakelj. Yeah, smart, tough, physical. If you watched him on the field, you'd be like, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. Then you talk to him and you realize, oh my God, this guy's the total package. He's smart. He's tough. He's hardworking. He's dedicated. He's on the come. Watch for Nick Zakelj this summer. I don't know if he'll start over McKivitz at tackle, but they're going to try to find a way to get him on the field. I can guarantee you that. Gregus, good to see you, Gregus. He says, Gregus Khan, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Forster said Burford and Zakelj are guards. Well, he definitely said that Fisher's a guard, and there's no doubt that Burford's a guard right now. Now, Burford played right tackle at University of Texas at San Antonio. Zakelj, I think, is ideally a guard, but I think he could probably play right tackle. That would be my guess. So there you go. A BV50 says, good, Larry, we need that O-line depth. Some says we're thin, super thin at offensive tackle. That is a concern, how thin they are at offensive tackle. Greg says he thinks Feliciano can play right tackle. I doubt that. I really doubt that. In fact, Some says he's a guard. Yeah, he is a guard. Feliciano is a damn good center or guard, but I think he's probably a right guard in an ideal world. Maybe left, but any of those 3 spots in the interior, I think, is where Feliciano is going to slate in. We got this one from Steven Saunders. McKivitz isn't going to get thrown around like McFloppy. You know, the one thing about McGlinchey, first of all, he was way underrated. There were so many people ripping him, and it was just because he had one major weakness. He could not jump out and get set against the best speed rushers this league has to offer. So what would happen is he would lunge. And then when he would lunge, he would get banged on that inside left shoulder and just lose his balance. And you saw him get like basically he was parallel with the ground. And it was all because that was his major breakdown. That was his one weakness. He was, other than that, I thought McGlinchey was really solid, and really solid as a run blocker. But I think McKivitz is going to be a little bit better as a pass protector, and it's a pass happy league. Every year there's more and more passing and less running. So you gotta value pass protection, and I think people are going to be really pleasantly surprised by Colton McKivitz. I really do. Gregus says, I agree with Larry on Feliciano. Yeah, he's the real deal. Uncle Salty, Sunset Boys rule. There you go. A little fist in the air for the outer sunset. BV says, Larry, I'd like to see you have 49er cutback podcaster Ant. He's real good. Have on. Who's the 49er cutback podcaster? I'll have him on. Is he good? If he's good, I'll have him on. I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on all of the Niner content creators, but maybe not, because I haven't heard of him. So maybe give me a little bit more information just other than Ant. Is there something you can give me besides that, and I'll try to get a hold of him. Jim Thurlkill says, Larry, what's our starting D-line look like? How much time does Jackson get? The D-line is Hargrave and Armstead, Bosa and Jackson. And there's a huge drop-off after that. But those guys, that foursome right there could be as good as any. I think Jackson's going to get all the run he wants and then some. You know, his motor is goes hard. He put on upper body strength. He looks really good. Drake Jackson, to me, is going to be the most improved 49er from last year to this year. I really like him. Uncle Salty said Burford has apparently worked really hard this offseason. He's going to be full-time starter now that Brunskill has moved on. Yeah, I mean, Burford's body type is he's like the ideal body type for an NFL offensive lineman. He carries a ton of weight in his legs, in his lower body. And you're right. Burford looked like he had been working nonstop. What I love about Burford is the intelligence. He's such a smart kid. I mean, he is really, really smart. So you're talking about a guy who's got an ideal body for the game, and he's really, really smart. And that is that's a phenomenal combination. You know, when you have an ideal physical frame for O-line play and you have off the charts intellect, now, I mean, and to me, intellect is the most underrated aspect of 49er offensive line play. Why? Because Shanahan loves to use a dizzying array of formations and shifts and motions, and you got to be able to keep up with them. You got to be able to be assignment sound, and you can't be assignment sound if you're not really, really smart. There's just too many variables, too many things going on in this offense, too many things to know, too many variations, too much use of the bootleg game is huge. The play action pass is huge. Those are major, components of Kyle's offense. He loves shifting. He loves the motions. He's got a very deep playbook. You got to be smart. You got to be smart. And as an offensive lineman, it's coming at you fast and furious. And he's the total package. He's physically what you want, and then he's mentally what you want. So the arrow's pointing straight up on him and Banks. Banks is tremendous too. Let's not sleep on Banks. Big Banks is a tremendous left tackle. A lot of people thought, that tells you too, you can't evaluate these rookies too fast. A lot of people were convinced that Aaron Banks was a bust. And John Lynch had to come out about 3/4 of the way throughout Banks's rookie season, I should say, and come out and say, hey, all you guys, wallowing in this Banks is a bust. We don't see it as such. We're giving this guy a redshirt year. We think he's going to be great. Well, guess what happened year 2? He was damn good. He gave up like 8 pressures all year. Aaron Banks is a 10-year star. To me, Banks and Burford are the Niners starters at guard just going forward. I mean, and I mean, yeah, Seattle deserves some credit for Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross and getting bookend tackles in the draft, but the Niners deserve equal credit for finding bookend guards. You got Burford and Banks, and I think those guys are going to be their starting guard combo probably for the next decade. Uncle Salty, Krueg, who's going to be the third starting linebacker? Well, first of all, they play in the sub package so much that I think you're only going to see 3 linebackers on the field probably 20% of the time, 25% of the time. 3 out of every 4 plays, that starting linebacker is going to be on the sideline. But I think it's going to be Marcelino. Now, a lot of people, you just heard Jordan say he thinks it might be Oren Burks. Burks was really good. Marcelino's got potential to be great. So I'm going to say it's Marcelino. Some says, great show as always. Keep up the great work. We got this one from Kurt Sampson. Hey, Kurt. He says, everyone forgets about Curtis Robinson. Yeah, seriously. Curtis Robinson, really smart kid out of Stanford, but fast, athletic. Great guy, too. Really good guy to talk to. I love talking to Curtis. Yeah. I mean, the Niners are stacked at linebacker. This is why, the people that are the sky is falling and the Niners are no good and this and that. It's like, dude, do you know football at all? They're loaded at running back. They're loaded at wide receiver. They're loaded at linebacker. And they've got some incredible depth at those 3 spots. The Niners have probably as good a roster as almost anybody in pro football. Let's see. We got this one from Jim Thorokill. He says, Larry, you need to get Ronbo on. Great channel, very bright. Is Ronbo, where is he based out of? Florida? I've seen his stuff before. I can't say anything other than that. I can't say that he stood out to me as that great, but I'm not going to rip him. Some says Ronbo is a glorified cheerleader. I don't know. Kurt says it's just a different style that he has. I haven't seen. If it's the guy, is it Chat Sports or is that different? I gotta check out my some of my Niner content creators that I haven't checked out yet. But those 2 guys I know are out there a lot. Greg says Banks, Burford are the OGs until it's time to pay them big bucks. We'll see. I think they're going to probably wind up paying those guys. We got this one. Jim Thorokill. Larry, what about the linebacker from TCU, D. Winters? How will the defense change? I think the defense is going to change in that you're going to see more delayed blitzes from the linebackers. Winters is instinctive and fast. He's small. He's 5'11", 230. He needs to get stronger in the lower body. He doesn't have great lower body explosion, but his instincts are outstanding. His speed, he ran 4.48, 4.49, something like that. He's 230 pounds. He kind of reminds me of Jamie Winborn for some of you older Niner fans. Do you guys remember Winborn, who played at Vandy? Was a pretty damn good Niner linebacker for years. So he kind of reminds me a little bit of Winborn. Bomber T says Ronbo is awesome. Great guy. All right. I'll have to check him out. Third string all pro says chat sports sucks. Different guy. All right. Bryant says Ronbo Sports is the best. He started it all. Wow. Now people are very passionate about Ronbo. Tony Chavez. Ronbo is the man. Greg says Chat and Ronbo are totally different. All right. I'll have to check out Ronbo. You know what? I think I have checked out Ronbo. Somi says Ronbo lives in Vietnam. Yeah, I think I have seen his show, but it's been months. All right. Couple last things on the show. As far as the rest of the week, let me give you a little breakdown on what we got cooking the rest of the week. We'll be in Santa Clara, basically all for every moment of training camp. That will the veterans report on the 24th, I believe. So yesterday we did a live stream with Grant, and also I was on 95.7 The Game yesterday, sitting in for Guru between 10 and 2. Today I was on with Damon Bruce at 11 a.m. and you just saw my Jordan Elliot live stream. Now I'm working on a bunch of videos that I'll be putting out later today. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be collabing with my buddy, the great Wayne Breezy. Breezy will be in the house tomorrow at 2. And then Raj, who's normally with us on Mondays at 1, because I was filling in doing radio on Monday, we moved Raj to Wednesday. So Raj is going to be on the channel Wednesday tomorrow at 4 p.m. from RSF 49ers. We'll get his thoughts on the rookies reporting. Thursday is going to be the big day this week. Thursday at 2 p.m., I'll be doing my very first hit on the David Lombardi channel. That's right. Dave Lombardi has invited me on his channel, and I will be rapping with the great David Lombardi at 2 o'clock on his channel. And then tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Vish and Jesse and I are going to be live streaming together. So I'm fired up about that. I love those guys. Vish is, awesome. Jesse's equally awesome. And we're going to be doing this all year. It's going to be Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. Me, Jesse, and Vish blowing it up, talking lots of Niners. Friday morning, I haven't confirmed it yet, but Jack Hammer and I are going to get together Friday at 11 a.m. to do a co-branded show on both of our channels. Saturday morning, haven't confirmed it yet, but I'm trying to get the coach to come back for Krueg and the Coach 4. That's right, the 4th edition of Me and the Coach. And also, we are approaching 20,000 subs. I took last week off to go to Cal Poly and Central Coast and spend some time with the kids and the family and do the beach thing, and really enjoyed it. What can I say? I love going to the beach, and I've been so busy doing the channel and so busy doing everything that I just have not had time to do any vacationing in the last year. So we took a week off, and I know there are a lot of people going, dude, where are you? Where's your content? We did produce some videos on vacation, but I saw this morning that I hadn't live streamed in like 9 or 10 days. So it has been a while. So I just wanted to apologize for all of you guys who are regular supporters of the channel and love the live streams. We will be live streaming basically daily, probably twice a day, between now and January 1st, 2024. So you're going to keep getting more damn Krueg than you actually want. But we are sitting at 19,939 subs. That's right. We are 61 subs away from 20,000 subs. And I don't even know where to begin on that. I got to thank my son, Kevin, who's helped me immeasurably. I got to thank the great Len Dempsey. I got to thank Grant Cohn, who, there's lots of people who are like, I hate Grant. No, you don't know Grant. If you hate Grant, that means you probably don't know Grant, or you're judging him off his show. He's a really good guy. And when I was at my lowest point, fired by the radio, sitting there going, what do I do? Do I leave markets? Do I jump to this station? Do I jump to that station? He's like, blow it all off and do your own YouTube channel and become bigger and better than all of them. And you know what? Damn if he wasn't right. And where Grant's at with 65,000 subs, it's a credit to him. It really is. And where Dave is at with his channel, probably 40,000 or something like that, 38,000 subs or whatever Dave's got. Amazing. And now we are closing in on 20,000 subs, and we've been doing this for a year and 3 months, something like that, 15 months, 16 months, and we're at 20,000 subs. So I just want to thank, of course, my son, Len Dempsey, who's my tech guy who helps me immeasurably with everything. We got new projects coming. We got new sponsorships coming. We got new associations coming, new intros, new sets, new earphones. The mic is good. The camera's great, but we're going to dress up the rest of it. So I just wanted to thank all those guys and just remind you that, nobody gets here by themselves. And I just wanted to say thank you to all you guys because, to be honest, I love doing this. It's the best decision I ever made. And, I only look forward. I don't look back. So if you're one of the 200 plus still sitting in the room here an hour and a half into this live stream and you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please do. If you hit like, it just helps the algorithm. More people find our shows. And then if you hit subscribe every time we go live, it costs nothing. You just hit that notification bell, and every single time we go live, you'll get a little notification that we're going live, and you can be there for all the Krueg Show content, and we're going to have a ton of it coming this year. So we're at 19,940. We're 60 subs away from 20,000. Help us get to 20,000. I set a training camp deadline as I wanted to get to 20,000 before training camp. So we have 6 days? 6 days to get 60 subs. I think we're going to get there. But I had to take a week-long vacation with the family to go to the beach, to tan my body, and to just spend some time with my kids. So I hope you guys filled the time without me. But thank you very much for supporting the channel. All right, a couple more comments here that I want to get to, and then we will call it a day. Eric Hernandez says, Niners just put Luter Jr. on the PUP list, according to the SF Niners. Can you follow up? Okay, let me see about that. I did not hear that, but I will look into it. As far as what exactly his injury is, that I don't know. I don't know what his injury is, but I will see if I can find that for you. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to find it while we're sitting here, but I'll look that up. That's Darrell Luter Jr., long arm corner out of South Alabama. Have a lot of hopes for Luter that he's going to have a really, really good season. So I'll look for that. What else? Some says, best 49er podcast. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Michael Taylor says, Krueg dropping so much great content for us diehard Bay Area sports fans. We're trying, brother. Sacktown Izzy. Trey Lance starting week 1. There you go. He's making a prediction. Being Butterfly. Lombardi and Krueg are my favorite. Alex G says, SF Niners Brad Graham is legit. He is. Have you did a collab with him? I have. But you know what? I'll give him a call because I'd like to do another one. Brad's phenomenal. Let's see. What else? We got people arguing here. Jim Thorokill eating some New York style Italian sausage as we speak. There you go. Enjoy it. Absolutely enjoy it. Tony Chavez ripping Trey. Says Trey's soft as a pillow and Kyle knows it. I expect Trey to look really good, by the way. As far as just overall thoughts on training camp, I expect Trey Lance to be good. And I expect Brock Purdy to be healthy and to be improved. I'm in the camp that believes that the 49ers have 2 franchise quarterbacks. What you saw last year from Brock Purdy was not accidental. You saw a guy who played 3 games in August, then sat for 3 months plus, then got called off the bench and didn't lose. So think about that. How many quarterbacks in pro football can do that? So what Brock did was amazing. And I think Trey's a terrific prospect. He's raw. You should expect him to be raw. He's going to continue to be raw, but the talent's there. The kid's really got it. He's got it here. He's got it here. He's got it here. That, as far as I'm concerned, all the boxes are checked. Now it's just a matter of how long is it going to take? And I hope the Niners show patience because I think they'll regret it if they don't. Alex G says, that's what's up, Larry. I live in Santa Maria, 30 minutes from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. Oh, yeah, it was fun. The weather was perfect. I love the Central Coast. Greg Esconce's Trey Lance's teammates adore him because he's a great guy. That's why. And he's a hardworking guy. And he's respectful. And he wants it. And he's all about team. And he's all about getting better. And there's no negatives. The only negatives you hear about Trey come from the outside world. They don't come from the inside world. They don't come from the teammates. They don't come from the coaches. Now, the coaches haven't necessarily stood up and celebrated his football. That's just because he's raw. And they'll celebrate him when he deserves to be celebrated and not before. But he's getting better. And I expect him to be a whole lot better. And I expect him to play really well in the preseason, and I expect him to be the number 2 quarterback to Brock Purdy come week 1. And if Darnold beats him out, I'll be shocked. I'll be absolutely shocked by that. Sacktown Izzy, all Lance teammates says he's made huge improvements. I agree. I can see it. I'll tell you what I saw. What I saw last summer in minicamp or last spring in minicamp from Brock Purdy is what I saw this minicamp from Trey Lance. In that Brock Purdy was calm. He was under control. He mastered all the drills. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked like he knew what was coming. He looked like he had mastered every drill they were asking him to do and that it was just routine. Trey last year didn't quite look like that. This year, he did look like that. He looked calm. He looked like he'd mastered every drill. He looked comfortable. He looked like he was in step with his receivers. He had an errant throw here and there, but for the most part, his accuracy was better. Alex Smith did an interview with Matt Mayoko, and he talked about how the quarterback position, it's about accuracy and timing and processing. And that's why Brock's so damn good. And that's why Trey's going to be good, because he can process. He can be more accurate than he's been. And to me, it's all about getting his consistency down with the accuracy and the timing. And it's just about reps. He needs more reps. But I think you're going to see how much better he is this summer. Kurt Sampson says, Lombardi, Cohn, and Krueg. 49er Minded says, I don't get how people hate Grant. Oh, you don't get it? He's on top. When you're on top, people hate. That's the way it is. Michael Taylor, very honorable to pay respect to Grant like that. You both are great. I wouldn't pay respect to him if it wasn't true. He's a good guy. Sacktown or Somi Mahara says 49er Minded is also awesome. Well, there you go. Now we're giving love in the chat to other people. Gregus says that Grant's the TMZ of 49er content. Alex says the difference with Grant is he's not a fan of the 49ers. I doubt that's you don't spend as much time as we spend talking about a topic if you don't have general enthusiasm for that topic. Kevin F says, Larry, bring together Grant and Dave. Hey, I'm not Jimmy Carter. I don't know if I can do that. You know, I can do a lot. I don't know if I can do that. Being Butterfly. I don't hate Grant Cohn, but I don't like his brand. All right. But hey, you know what? You have an opinion. Look at it this way. The opposite of hate is not love. The opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. Indifference. 49er Minded. I'm so annoyed that they put Darrell Luter Jr. on the PUP list. All right, well, let's figure out what the injury is and go from there. I know what you're saying, though. We got this one being Butterfly. I prefer David Lombardi and Krueg. All right. That's the beauty of this thing. It's Baskin and Robbins, and there's 31 flavors. And some people are going to be like, hey, Krueg, you're my flavor. Other people will be like, dude, Krueg, I can't stand you, your content, your kid, your channel, and everything about you. So it's just the way it is. Veggie Delight, 19,000 subs. You're lazy, Larry. Effing lazy. The great Bill Urbanic said, I love you, boy, but you're fucking lazy. I'm making those t-shirts, by the way. Jay Ellie agreed with the 49er cutback comment earlier. Get blank on with you, Larry. What does that say? What is that? I can't even make out what that is. Jay Ellie, I'm going to need some clarification. What else? Third string all pro. Larry is high-end barbecue, Niners content, and Grant and Ryan are drunk fast food content takes. LOL. Let's not rip those guys. Come on. Janet says Deshaun Jameson, big fan of Deshaun Jameson. I'll say it right now on July 18th. Deshaun Jameson, undrafted rookie corner out of Texas, makes the final 53. SMH, Larry almost to 20,000 subs. Yes, sir. Bomber T, Larry grew faster than any content creator I know of. I had a lot of help, man. I had a lot of help. And being on the radio for 25 years doesn't hurt. 49er Minded says Jameson is an explosive return man. He is. Go watch Deshaun Jameson. I almost called him Antoine. Go watch Deshaun Jameson's return tape from Texas. Tell me if it doesn't look like Deion Sanders. Rich Hidalgo. Hey, Rich. He says, Larry is the truth. The truth. I like that. Maybe I'll get a t-shirt like that. The truth. Being butterfly. I agree with you, Krug. I think Brock and Trey have the Niners back. Yeah, I really believe that Brock Purdy is a franchise quarterback, but I also believe that Trey Lance is a future Niners franchise quarterback. I really do. Some Mahara says, Larry, are you going to do any pregame, postgame shows on the radio this year? In negotiations right now with 95.7 The Game to do pregame for them. Other than that, I'll be definitely doing postgame on this channel. We'll be doing postgame each and every week. Lots of postgame. So, yeah, absolutely fired up. Got a couple new sponsors we're going to tell you about in the week as well. Fired up about that. Huge money being invested in our channel, and that's always exciting. 49er Tone says, 49er Minded is awesome. Krug, you are the man. No, not 49er related, but can we get another video ripping John Fisher and Rob Manfred to shreds soon? LOL. You can't get enough of ripping. Go to Damon Bruce Plus. He loves ripping the A's. I don't got enough time, man. I don't care enough. It's like after a while, I'm just like, you know what? I feel bad for A's fans, but then I'm just like, get out of my face. You want to go to Vegas? Go to Vegas. Get out of here. I don't want to deal with it. By the way, the Giants game has started 2-2, bottom or top 8, second and third, 1 out. This is the continuation of the suspended game. J.D. Davis at the plate will tell you if the Giants break through here in the 8th. Oh, look at this one. 49er Minded. I finally saw who Bill Urbanic was. I found a video of him. Oh, yeah. The great Bill Urbanic was the defensive coordinator for the Sacramento Gold Miners in the Canadian League in 94. He was the Bengals D-line coach when Joe Montana beat them in Super Bowl 23. He was the Raiders D-line coach in the late 90s. He was one of my mentors, my friend. And he used to say to me all the time, I love you, boy, but you're fucking lazy. And I will say this, he did teach me the value of hard work. The guy really did work hard. Michael Taylor, can we get Ned Colletti on again before the trade deadline? Absolutely. Absolutely. Ned's a good friend. I text him almost every day. Forever Faithful 49 says, Krueger is cool. Grant has a punchable face. Okay. Veggie Delight. I want that t-shirt, Larry. You like the Krug Show shirt? All you got to do is go to my channel on YouTube, the Krug Show channel, and go to the store. It's right there on the page. You just go to the store. Anything that you buy supports the channel, and I'll cut you a video saying thank you. Just because that's what I feel. That's how I feel, strongly I feel about anybody who supports our channel. Bomber T says, you're just good, Larry. I appreciate it. Let me also say one other thing. The other day, I'm on vacation, and there was Patrick Bailey down the line. Fair or foul? Foul. Oh, that would have been nice. But, you know, sometimes I do things and say things that I regret. And there was a Jason Barrett, who's a friend of mine, who's got Jason Barrett Media, had this big story out when I was down in San Luis Obispo about how 95.7 The Game is kicking KMBR's ass in every day part. And they, you know, it was every single day part. And I tweeted it out, and I threw out the afternoon drive stats, and it was not becoming of me. And you know, some of those guys who I used to work with have reached out to me and said, hey man, I thought we were friends and this and that. And you know what? I deleted it. I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I'm doing well. And I wish they were doing as well. Instead, they're not doing that well. But I shouldn't be celebrating anybody not doing well. There's reasons that KMBR is getting beaten by 95-7 the game. And me not being there is only one tiny little bit of it. It has a lot more to do with other things that have nothing to do with me. And so I should not have been taking victory laps on their ass. And I should not have been tweeting out any kind of celebration about, their demise or their struggles or 90, now I'm on 95-7 the game on a part-time basis. But I'm not the reason that 95-7 the game is beating KMBR right now. I'm not. And even if I was, I shouldn't have put that out there. And I hurt some people that I do care about. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And I deleted that tweet. And it doesn't change the reality of the situation. But I'm better than that. And sometimes I got to remind myself that I am better than that. And I didn't need to do that. And instead I did. So, my friends who work over there, whether they're hosts or producers, they're good people and they're doing the best they can do. And some of it's out of their hands. And anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. It's like sometimes, I feel like I put out a lot of good content. And sometimes I do dumb shit and put my foot in my mouth. And I'm better than that than to rip those guys. And there's no reason I should have, and there's no reason I should take success in it. And do I feel burned by being let go there? Yeah, I do. And do I feel bitter about it? I guess, yeah, to some degree I do. But still, I should never have taken to a public forum and celebrated 95-7 the game, beating KMBR. And it's not a good look for me, but beyond that, it's just not the right thing to do. And I'm a person that believes in trying to do the right thing. And, I say it all the time. And if it's going to be more than words, then I got to back it up, which is I say that if you're my friend, you're my friend for life. And I took a couple swipes at some guys who I do consider friends. And I just want to apologize because that wasn't right. It wasn't right. It wasn't who I am. And I just had to say it. I had to say it. As I said, I think I put a lot of good content out on this channel. I think KMBR should have held on to me and kept that content in-house over there. They got their own issues, but nevertheless, I'm in a better place now, and I should just keep doing my thing and not get negative, And I got negative, and I turned on those guys, and I caused some pain over there. And some of those guys reached out to me while I was on vacation, and I felt like a jackass. So, anyway, Alex says, yeah, you know what? Taking the high road, Larry, that's what real ones do. You're right. You're absolutely right. So that, that's the thing. That's the thing. We all, Bomber T says, we all do dumb stuff in the heat of the moment, Larry. Everyone knows you mean well. So, nothing but respect for Copes, Tommy T, Tim Webb, all the people over there. And I got to be better than that because that's not me. And it ain't cool. I wouldn't want those guys taking swipes at me if they were on top and I was on the bottom. So anyway, I apologize to those guys because none of those guys have ever treated me badly. So there you go. Anyway, hey, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Krueg Show. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Kev Krueger. Thanks to Len Dempsey. Thanks to our guest today, the great Jordan Elliot. And until next time, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, get in hand.